I've been wrestling with the scene behind me for years. Well, finally, I'm turning it into a passenger station scene on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things. Indecision, mental block, and procrastination plague us all at times as we strive to build our model railroads. What to model in a location, what scenes to include and which ones to leave out, how to compose a scene, and 100 other decisions can overwhelm us if we let them. Well, that's kind of how I've been with the scene on the lower deck right behind me. I have shifted gears with major ideas for this scene 2 or 3 times. I've even changed the scenic base a couple of times. Well, I've made a final decision. I'm going to build out a passenger station platform, an industry, and the roads and scenery that surround them. So let me show you where I am, and we'll get started. This video is brought to you by Midwest Model Railroad. With 15,000 square feet of inventory and 1-day shipping, whether in person or online, they are your one-stop model railroad shop. MidwestModelRR.com, link in the description. Here's the area I'm working in today. When I originally built the benchwork here, I planned for this just to be a scenery area, and it dropped down below the level of the track. Then, several years back, I decided to model the Fort Worth Central Station here and add Amtrak service to the layout. So I cut in this curved turnout and made a video about it, and I installed the foam to bring the level back up to that of the rear section. But as I started building the station, I realized that there was no way that the building would fit into the scene, so I just sat here for years. Somewhere in that time, I decided to model just the station platform, but I wasn't sure exactly how I wanted to do that. But today, I'm going to build out this scene, including the plywood factory behind the platform. Note that when I raised the level of the scenery here, it raised slightly above the fascia. Not wanting to replace an entire 8-foot section of fascia, I angled the front edge of the scenery down to the fascia. Well, that isn't going to work now, so step 1 is going to be to figure out some way to fix that mistake. To do this, I started by cutting and gluing strips of 1/2-inch extruded foam to this angled edge. I cut the length of these strips to match changes in the contour of the angle, so I wasn't trying to bend the foam around the contours. I glued these scabs onto the existing foam with styro glue from Hot Wire Foam Factory. This is a specialized foam glue, and it's a little pricey, but its advantage is that it can be cut with hot wire tools, which I thought might be needed here. If you're not cutting foam with hot wire, I prefer to use a less expensive glue, but if you're carving foam with a hot wire tool, styro glue is the way to go. If that's something that's of interest to you, I'll include a link to styro glue in my Amazon pick of the week in the description down below. As I glued each piece of foam down, I pinned it with T-pins in multiple angles to hold it tight until the glue had set. I let the glue cure overnight, then removed the T-pins and made sure all of the pieces were secure. I then began to carve the new scenery edge. The vertical cut along the front edge was only about 1/2 inch deep, so I cut it cleanly with a linoleum knife. The horizontal cut, however, was nearly 2 inches, so for this I used a hacksaw blade. I was pleased to learn that one layer of 1/2-inch foam completely fixed this taper I had cut years ago. Now, using a saw on foam is messy, so I vacuumed up all the debris very well. I also used a Sureform tool to smooth and blend the new foam into the old. You can also do this with coarse sandpaper. I cleaned up the old adhesive along the fascia with a knife. I'll address this short fascia issue in a later video. The vacuum got a good workout throughout this project, as this foam is messy whenever you cut it, and the static electricity causes it to stick to everything. You can see that I have assembled the basic structure of a plywood factory kit behind the station. At this point, I am laying out the position of the truck lot for the factory and the platform itself, as well as the streets in the scene, marking them with a Sharpie. I also laid out the placement of the track leading into the station. My station spur has to be stub-ended, as there's no way to fit a second turnout into this area at the other end. This isn't prototypical for the Fort Worth station, but there are plenty of places in the US where it is prototypical and trains shove into or out of stations, so I can live with it. By the way, it's worthy to note that these two spurs of track are the very last tracks to be laid on my layout. Here you see a section of old Styrene street that survived my previous layout. It was an ideal width for a 2-lane street, so I often use it for marking street locations, as well as helping me to envision how streets will fit into a scene. This street that I'm laying out is 8th Street in Fort Worth, Texas. There was a slight difference between the surface of the foam here and the plywood behind it, so I used the Sureform tool to level it off. Using the vacuum along with the Sureform tool helps to keep the mess under control. I also laid out the placement of the industrial track that runs into the plywood factory. A track setter helps keep these curves consistent. I marked the placement and length of the track and cut it to length. The factory lead required a short downgrade from the main line, so I cut a short section of Cork roadbed and carved it to fit into the existing turnout on the main line. I then glued it to the plywood with carpenter's wood glue, weighing it down until it dried. When dry, I used the Sureform tool to taper it down to the surface of the plywood. To level off the seams in the scene and fill a few holes and gaps, I mixed up some sculptamold. I like to mix my sculptamold a little thick for faster drying time. And I replaced some of the water with acrylic paint to reduce the white color in case any shows through later layers of scenery. I use an artist's trowel to smooth it out and fill in the holes and gaps. As the sculptamold begins to set up, a wet finger rubbed over the surface will help to smooth it down and reduce sanding later. Don't do this too soon though, or you may rub the sculptamold right off, especially on foam. The sculptamold can take several hours or even a couple of days to fully dry, depending on how wet you mix it and how thick your application. I typically let mine dry overnight at the least. In the meantime, I turn my attention to the station platform. I use this Walters kit as a starting point for mine, but I am highly modifying it to create the look that I want, resembling the prototype that I'm following. I'm making a dedicated video about this platform build, so I won't go into a lot of detail here, but watch for that video coming soon, and if it's been published when you're watching this video, I'll post a link to it in an end screen at the end of this one. Let me pause for just a moment to say that if you're enjoying this video and would like to see more model railroad tips, tools, and techniques to help you build a better model railroad, then be sure to subscribe down below and click the little bell icon so you can catch future videos. When the sculptamold had dried, I used some coarse sandpaper and a sanding block to smooth down the rough spots and shape any areas that needed it. You'll note that I didn't quite add enough paint to the sculptamold, so it's still pretty light in color. This is okay, as it will be covered with paint and other scenery material. I finished this step by vacuuming up the debris. Next, it was time to paint the scenery base. This is one of the few times that I use dollar store craft paint, as it's cheap and it coats well, and it will be mostly covered by other scenery material. I use a variety of light to medium brown colors and let them mix randomly for this layer. This layer is just to ensure that none of the base material shows through any small gaps in the scenery later. I apply a liberal coat to the base. In this case, I'm using a cheap applicator brush because brush strokes really aren't a concern, but any paintbrush will work for this step. You'll note that I left some areas unpainted where I'll be gluing down track and roads. I prefer not to glue to paint as it doesn't provide the most secure bond. When the paint had dried, I installed the remaining tracks. Now, here is a question that I have for you. When installing a track on the diverging end of a turnout, the ends of the first couple of ties on the inside always bump up against one another. I've always remedied this by cutting off the ends of the least visible ties just outside of the spike heads. This works if you don't look at it closely, but it doesn't look good. Do you have another way to remedy this problem that works and looks better? I've never seen anyone address this in a video. Let me know your ideas in the comment section down below the video, and depending on the ideas I get, this might be the subject of a later video. I use a number 17 chisel blade to remove the spike detail on the last tie on each side of the rail joint to allow the rail joiners to slip on over the ties. I then slipped the rail joiners onto one set of rails and pushed them onto the other set, then used some needle nose pliers to center the joiners on the joint. In a recent video where I was installing some track, a viewer whose handle you see on the screen now suggested that I tried 90-degree needle nose pliers for this to improve my line of sight. I have a set that had never considered it, and he was exactly right. Thanks for the idea. I used a straight edge to make sure that the straight track was actually straight. I then lifted the track and applied a bead of latex caulk, smoothing it out with a putty knife. You want to leave enough caulk to adhere the track well to the surface, but not enough that it pushes up between the ties and interferes with ballast later. I pushed the track down into the caulk, then pinned it in place with some push pins while it dried. I repeated this process with the track for the plywood factory, but in this case I had to curve the track slightly to make sure it was placed correctly to run into the structure. When the caulk had dried, I pulled the push pins out. I needed to add another short section of track to the end of the station track, which also needed a curve in it. Again, I followed the same procedure, cutting the section of track to length and gluing it and pinning it down. I needed a parking lot and a truck lot for the plywood factory. The placements of all of these elements was a big part of the planning for this scene, as the truck lot needed to be big enough to be believable. I make most of my streets and parking lots out of large format 20 thousandths inch thick styrene. For the truck lot, it took 2 pieces to make the width. Planning the streets required a grade crossing over the station track. For this, I used this Woodland Scenic steel plate crossing. These look pretty believable in N-scale. The package comes with 2 sections, but I needed both of them to provide enough width for this 2-lane angled street grade crossing. The end of the sections are not smooth, so I cut them in my Chop It from Micromark to cut them straight and to length. The kit comes with 2 different thicknesses of shims for different rail heights. The top of the crossing needs to sit just below the top of the rails. Since I use code 80 track, I needed the thicker shims. I glued the shims to the bottom of the crossing sections with CA. Here again is this section of styrene road that I used to help me position the staggered crossings across the angled grade crossing. When I had the position correct, I glued the sections to the ties of the track with CA. I glued the 3 sections down on one side of the road, then fit the ones for the other side of the road next to them. When the CA had set, I tested the crossing with this boxcar. Everything ran as smooth as silk. I had to build up the road on each side of the crossing. For this, I used some 3/16 inch sheet cork that I had on hand. I used this sheet cork for roadbed in yards. The thickness of this cork plus the 20 thousandths inch styrene street was just about a perfect fit up next to the grade crossing. I'm also modeling the pickup and drop-off lane along the station platform, which I underlaid with the same cork to match the height of the street and the platform. This particular scrap of cork was a bit curled up because of how it had been stored. I glued the cork down with carpenter's wood glue. When gluing down cork, it's important that you spread the glue over the entire gluing surface of the cork. Otherwise, it will tend to bubble up when you apply scenery materials on top of it. Don't ask me how I know. When the glue was applied and the cork set in place, I weighed it down with 10-pound weights to flatten out the curls while the glue dried. The short section of cork on the other side of the track needed to taper down to the surface of the plywood. I cut most of the taper at the workbench with my Surform tool and some 60 grit sandpaper before I installed it. I then glued it in place. When the glue had all dried, I removed the weights. I used sheets of printer paper to mark and cut templates for the road section. The templates are specifically for the smooth styrene sections of road. You'll note the gaps in the template along the platform. These sections will be brick crosswalks. I cut, taped, and shaped the paper template until I was happy with its shape and position in the scene. As I worked, I realized that a section of the cork didn't adhere well along one edge, so I shot a little more glue under it and weighed it down while I cut out the roads. I cut the roads from the same 20 thousandths inch styrene that I had used for the parking lot. This sheet had a section cut out of it already. Fortunately, with a little trial and error, I was able to fit and cut all of the sections I needed from this one partial sheet. I taped the templates to the styrene and traced the edges with a pencil just in case the template came loose. I then began to carefully cut them out using a new sharp number 11 blade. I sanded any edges that had imperfections as well as to smooth out the curves. I set these sections in place to make sure that they fit properly. The brick crosswalks will be part of the platform build, which I will cover in my next video. After that, I'll be painting and weathering these streets and the parking lot, finishing the plywood factory in the rear, and adding scenery and details to the scene to bring it to life. So watch for all of that in coming videos. To see more about this scene as it develops and other model railroad content, check out the links on your screen. Be sure and see my Amazon pick of the week and my Amazon store, along with other valuable links in the description down below. And join me for future installments as I bring you even more great model railroad videos. And I'll see you on the next video. 10, Lizzie?